know this. Killing is my business, ladies, and business is good.
Hello everyone, it's KhalifPVP bringing you a ESO Nightblade build. I like to call this build my Punisher build because it is a very hard-hitting build. It is my primary build that I'm using in PvP Cyrodiil right now, and somewhat the primary build that I use when it comes to bosses and hard-hitting mobs, and my somewhat day-to-day leveling build from 1 to 50. This build, just quick overview, I like to call it somewhat like a yin and yang build because every action, it has a complete opposite action in that build. For example, one skill bar is very hard-hitting, CC heavy skill bar, whereas the other skill bar, it is a more of a damage over time skill bar. Same thing with its resource management. One skill bar is very mana heavy, whereas the other skill bar is very stamina heavy. And again, with damage output, one is a melee skill bar, whereas the other is a range skill bar. Because of this, it gives you a great versatile PvP build. Whereas, if you're running around and you don't want to go up close and personal, you can switch to your range bar and range attack your opponents. Whereas if you're doing a one-on-one gank, you can switch to your melee bar and melee attack the opponent. Also, resource management is great. As I mentioned, you utilize both mana and stamina. A lot of the builds, it's going to be more mana heavy or stamina heavy, and from my experience, a lot of times what I found was that I run out of my resources and I'm kind of just twiddling my thumb. So this build offers kind of an all-encompassing resource management as well as attack and defense. The only drawback to this build, there are cons, not all builds are godlike. The only drawback to the build is it is very reliant on hard-hitting skills. So it's almost like I don't want to say a glass cannon nuke, but think of it as a glass cannon nuke. So if an opponent is able to kind of take your punishment, you don't have that much defensive skills to kind of compensate for it. So without further ado, let's kind of go into the build and see what skills and what armor and what our passives and all that stuff are. So now on to our stats. Before I get into stats, I would actually recommend getting an add-on called Soft Cap that kind of shows you what the soft cap for a particular stat is at particular level. Anyway, for my stat points, we have 44 Magicka, 5 Stamina. The reason I have 44 is my Magicka is almost at soft cap, only 3 below, and the rest I put right into Stamina. Now, I'm playing a Magicka-based race, High Elf, that has, I think it's a 10% bonus to Magicka. So for those of you that are playing more Stamina or health-based races like the Imperial, the Redguard, the Nord, you might want to put all stat points into Magicka. The point being, you want to make sure Magicka is as high as possible. And the reason is, pretty much all our high-hitting skills are going to be Magicka based, and as the description of Magicka states, any skill that takes Magicka as its input, like any class skill for example, is going to deal a lot more damage with higher Magicka. So now on to our armor sets. From the armor set, we pick up 5 medium and 2 light. This one gives you the best passive combinations that you can think of for this build, as well as kind of the damage mitigation that you get from having medium armor. From the crafted armor sets, we pick up the set of the Seducer. This gives us a 3% reduction in spell cost. In my opinion, this is probably the best set bonus that you can synergize with this build, because it is a Magicka heavy build. So for that particular reason, we picked up the Seducer. You only need 3 research traits for this, and it's very easy to get. So now on to our skill points. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because not everyone's going to have the same amount of skill points as each other. So in the beginning, I will tell you what I think is the vital skills to this build, and what skills the build revolves around, and then kind of add skills that I think are kind of additional kind of icing on the cake for this build. So from the two-handed skill tree, this is your primary weapon skill tree that you're going to be using. You're going to pick up Stampede, which is a morph version of Critical Charge. Stampede essentially gives you a right off the bat immobilize on your target, and it always deals critical damage. I picked up the Stampede versus, I think it's called, the other one's called Critical Rush. The reason I didn't pick up Critical Rush is sometimes I'm not going to be always, at max distance, and the bonus of critical rush is that if you're at max distance, you do more damage. So I couldn't guarantee that in PvP fights that I'm always going to be at the 22-meter range. So Stampede, it gives you a great opener with Immobilize, and it also does a pretty decent amount of damage. The next one we want to pick up from the skill tree is Wrecking Blow. Wrecking Blow is the morph version of Uppercut. It does ton of damage right off the bat, and it kind of stuns slash knockbacks the target for 3.5 seconds. Now on top of that, it gives you a nice damage increase on your next attack. So it gives you a 50 damage increase on your next follow-up attack. Great for follow-ups, great for kind of closing down a target and then following up with the Wrecking Blow. Now I will say Wrecking Blow is not the type of skill that you want to be spamming. I've seen a lot of people do it. Just come in there, start trying to Wrecking Blow people. No, you're gonna get absolutely destroyed if you try to do that. Wrecking Blow is a situational skill that you want to use when the timing is right. Next couple you want to pick up from the Assassination skill tree is Impale. Impale is the morph version of Assassin's Blade. The reason we pick up Impale, which makes your Assassin's Blade be able to cast on range, is because there have been a couple of PvP occasions where the target has gotten away from me and they're about like a sliver of health, especially with mages with their blink ability. They blink off and you know just about to kill them. Impale gives us the ability to cast essentially Assassin's Blade at range. And the reason we pick up Impale versus Killer's Blade is Killer's Blade gives you health back if you kill the target. But honestly, I didn't really think that it was that worth it to kind of get that health back. I personally prefer the being able to kill a target from range. And off to our Shadow skill tree, we're going to pick up Shadow of Disguise. This is the morph version of Shadow Cloak. Shadow of Disguise gives you a 100% crit chance at level 4. Essentially, it gives you a crit chance when it's morphed. The reason we picked that one over Dark Cloak removes negative effects. Now again, this is a damage dealing build. This is not a runaway build. So for that, getting that 100% critical is essential for our follow-up, which is Surprise Attack. Surprise Attack does a ton of damage, pretty much almost the same amount as Wrecking Blow. It does 357 at rank 4, and if stealth, it stuns the target and sets them off balance for 4 seconds. Surprise Attack is the morph version of Veiled Strike, and the reason we pick up Surprise Attack again versus I believe the thing's called Concealed Weapon is because it reduces the target's armor by 40%. And again, kind of sticking to our master plan, it is to lower the target down so we can DPS them fast. From the Siphoning tree, we're going to pick up a couple skills. We're going to pick up Swallow Soul, which is the morph version of Strife. Swallow Soul just kind of increases your overall healing. It's great if since you do have low health, getting that nice little 8% boost to your healing, that's pretty worth it. The next one we're going to pick up is Crippling Grasp. Crippling Grasp is the morph version of Cripple, and the reason we picked that one up is that right when it hits, it automatically immobilizes the target, and this is what we want to use to kind of close the gap. It puts a kind of immobilized target for almost about 2 seconds, and it gives you enough time to kind of close that gap and kind of hunt them down. And the reason we pick up that over Debilitate, which essentially it lowers the target's weapon attack speed as well. We don't really care about the target's weapon attack speed. He's not going to be attacking us anyway, so that one doesn't really affect us as much. From the bow skill line, we're going to pick up Venom Arrow. The Venom Arrow is the morph version of Poison Arrow. We pick up Venom Arrow because I honestly think the other version of Poison Arrow, which is Poison Injection, I don't think it's as strong as Venom Arrow. Poison Injection, it's like an exponential damage output as the target's health is low. I usually try not to attack a target with low health with my bow, so it really didn't synergize well with this build. The next one we're going to pick up is Magnum Shot. Magnum Shot is the morph version of Scatter Shot. The reason we pick up Magnum Shot is if you're using the bow in a fight, chances are things aren't going in your favor, and Magnum Shot allows you to kind of kite the target around, put some distance between your target, and kind of feed off of that energy. The next one you might want to pick up, and I want to kind of say it's essential to this build, it might not be, is Bombard. Bombard is somewhat like Cripple in the fact that it is the morph version of Arrow Spray. What it does is it puts a snare on the target as well as a 2.7 immobilize. So if you are, in your build, if you're not playing a Magic Place race and you're kind of finding yourself with low magicka, instead of picking up cripple, you might want to pick up bombard so you can get that CC without the cost of a magic based attack. For the ultimate, you guys can go with pretty much anything you want with the exception of the two-handed bar. The two-handed bar, you need to pick up Soul Tether, and the reason you pick up Soul Tether is to proc one of your passives, and I'll get to the passives later on. But for your bow ultimate, you can pick any one you want. I personally prefer Veil of Blades because it keeps targets away from me. You know, if I'm using the bow, chances are I'm losing the fight, so I just, I want to put a distance as much as possible between me and my enemy. Now for the passive skills, from the two-handed skill line, you're going to pick up Forceful with two-handed weapon equipped, light and heavy attacks deal 25% splash damage. It's just an easy add-on that you want to pick up. If you're low on skill points, don't worry about it. You can skip this one for the much more important heavy weapons, which with two-handed weapon equipped, it's going to have like a variable based thing. For example, with an axe, you're going to do bleed damage. With a mace, you're going to ignore armor. With a sword, you're going to deal 5% more damage. I personally like a sword for that 5% more damage because it is a scale of damage rather than a set amount like the mace. I do not like the axe with a 75% damage or 75 physical damage. I think that's way too low compared to the damage output you're gonna get from the two-handed sword. From the assassination skill line, this is a very big hot topic skill line. The only one we picked up is Executioner while using assassination ability. Killing an enemy will restore 168 magic over 6 seconds. Now the reason we picked that one up is that one of our biggest kills that we're going to use essentially to kill a target is Impale. And Impale, we're only going to use Impale to kill a target. We're not going to be using any other skill. So because of that, chance of Executioner firing off is very, very high. So we picked that one up. We bypassed Master Assassin. I know a lot of people want to pick this skill up, but it's right now, one, it's bugged, and two, it only works with assassination abilities. Now, if you look at the assassination abilities, there's only very few skills that you want to use from stealth. This one, what it does is increase weapon damage while using invisibility or stealth by 5%. The caveat is while using assassination abilities, and there's only very few abilities that you can use. So because of that, I completely bypassed this. I don't think it's useful, and it's only a very small percentage boost anyway. And the other one a lot of people want to pick up is pressure points. One, this is again also bugged. From what testers have done, tested at least, this does not scale as well as it should. Again, with an assassination ability slotted, increase critical strike rating by 1%. Unfortunately, this doesn't help us out too much because we only have one assassination ability slotted, so it doesn't really favor that much. And in my opinion, it's way too low. The critical rating boost is way too low for it to matter. The one we do pick up, however, is Hemorrhage with an assassination ability slotted, increase bonus critical damage by 5%. That's a really, again, remember the point of the build is to drop your target as fast as possible. And thanks to our Shadowy Disguise, which gives us a 100% crit chance, added with our surprise attack, that 5% bonus is going to be huge. From the Shadow skill line, we're going to pick up Refreshing Shadows, increase stamina regeneration by 30% for 6 seconds. This one's great because we're coming in and out of stealth anyway, so this one's going to be proccing pretty much 100% of the time. And the other one we want to pick up is Fortitude with a Shadow ability slaughter, increase max health by 3%. We have 2 Shadow ability slaughters, so we essentially get a 6% boost in our health pool. We bypass Shadow Barrier, increase armor and spell resistance by 850 for 4 seconds. Now 4 seconds in my opinion is way too low for me to count. But if you have an extra, if you have a bunch of extra skills that you can donate, feel free to pick this up. It's not a negative. I just didn't have enough skill points to kind of loan it out. The other one is Dark Veil while using Shadow ability, increase duration of Shadow abilities by 8%. This one I didn't pick up because the only Shadow ability that I care about is Shadow Disguise, and 8% is way too low. And I think at rank 2 is 16% or 20%, still way too low for me to count. Again, I don't have enough skill points to kind of hand out, but if you do have skill points that you don't have anything to do with, feel free to pick this up. From the siphoning skill line, we're going to pick up Catalyst, which increase potion effects by 20%. This is great because we don't have a lot of heals as a Nightblade. We only have one. So popping a potion, increasing the effectiveness by 20%, it goes a long way. Again, if you're low on skill points, you don't need to pick this up. This is not an essential passive ability. The next ability, however, is Magical Flood with siphoning ability slotted, increase max magicka by 8%. We do have, siphoning abilities slotted on both when Crippling Grasp, and on my other one, I have the ultimate Soul Tether. So those of you that that are playing around with the ultimate, you want to pick this Soul Tethers up and put it on your two-handed bar. So our semi-important, semi-useful skills. Those of you that are vampires, I don't know why you would be a werewolf, but those of you that are a vampire, the two skills you want to put on your bar is Midnight Drain and Elusive Mist. Elusive Mist is one of the greatest skills in the game right now. It essentially allows you to escape any situation that you can dream of. Gives you a great speed boost, gives you a whole bunch of other stuff that you can play around with. So that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the Punisher build. And if you want to see the build in use in PvP, check out the video that's linked right now. Let me know what you guys think of the build. If you have any suggestions, comments, etc., questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section. If you like the video, subscribe. Until next time, hopefully I see you guys in Ariel's Bow. That's where I play. So if you guys do play on that server, feel free to add me to party or whatever. I'm always there. And hopefully you guys have good luck with this build and kind of improve upon this build as you see fit.